Shalom, everybody. I hope you have a cup of tea or coffee or, like me, a water, and you are ready for your headlines. If you are new to this channel, welcome to it. This is the Israel Brief with me, Rolene Marks, and sometimes a different dog in the neighborhood. We take a look at those top stories making headlines in Israel. We do it every Monday to Thursday. The headlines you won't see in the legacy media. So come on over here. Everybody is welcome. Now, today is day 536 since the 7th of October. And as we will keep reminding the world, we still have 59 hostages captive by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists inside the Gaza Strip. We want them all home now. So let's get into those top stories, and we go to Gaza, where the IDF is continuing their military campaign called Swords and Strength. Now, the IDF confirmed yesterday that they had destroyed over 100 of those pickup trucks, so synonymous with the attack on the 7th of October. I'm sure so many of you remember those images that Hamas broadcast themselves of them entering towns and kibbutzim and along the Highway 232, where a lot of the killing took place on those white pickup trucks. And we also saw them in pristine condition at those grotesque hostage release ceremonies. Now, the IDF have confirmed that they have struck across the Gaza Strip over 100 of those. This morning, the IDF also confirmed that Al Jazeera journalist Hassan Shubat, I had to think of his name for a second, had been killed by IDF forces. Now, there's a catch here. Shubat and the IDF have presented the various documentation, not only masked himself as a journalist, but was also a sniper with Hamas's Beit Hanun battalion. And this is commonplace throughout this war, that we have Hamas operatives disguising themselves as doctors, as aid workers, as journalists, and others. So it is possible for those who are still skeptical that terrorists can lie, that they can put on a vest that says press and call themselves a journalist. Meanwhile, Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned Hamas of more consequences if the hostages are not released. I've been telling you that we have been receiving missiles fired by the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. Now, yesterday was the 6th time that the Houthis fired towards central Israel, where I am. I think I have spent nearly every single day having to run to the bomb shelter. Now, reports came in that this missile was intercepted by the Arrow defense system outside of Israeli territory. In fact, the Israeli media said that it was intercepted over Jordan. However, some of the shrapnel still fell in places like Beit Shemesh and, according to the Hebrew media, the city of Holon as well. This is why we have to go to our shelters, because it doesn't matter that these massive missiles are intercepted outside of our territory. From that blast, and you can imagine it is a massive blast, that shrapnel can be dispersed for many kilometers. So we go into our shelters just to make sure that we are not injured or, God forbid, killed by the shrapnel. Meanwhile, Palestinian Islamic Jihad took responsibility for the firing of rockets towards the Gaza envelope town of Sderot yesterday. And it's important to note, I mean, in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 days, we've had rockets fired from Yemen, we've had rockets fired from Lebanon, from Hezbollah in Lebanon, and from Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the Gaza Strip. You may have seen headlines in your media about an Oscar winner having been arrested by the IDF. What you don't have is the full story. So the story is as follows. Yesterday, clashes broke out between, we can call them extremist settlers if you wish, as well as Palestinians and international activists. Methinks international activists like to stir up some drama so that they can capture it on film and they can share it around the world. Well, these clashes between the various parties continued, and the Israeli security forces were called to disperse it. Some of the rocks that were thrown during these clashes were thrown at Israeli civilians, which resulted in one having to be medically evacuated, as well as Israeli security forces. The security forces arrested a number of people, including Palestinians, and included in those that were arrested was Hamdan Bilal, who recently won an Oscar for his documentary No Other Land. Now, what I find very suspicious is that news of his arrest made it to the entertainment media lickety-split without the context of why was he involved in a situation where he was throwing rocks at security forces, at IDF forces? Why was he in that predicament? This is what the media is not telling you, which is why you come here to the Israel Brief, so we can give you the full facts on the ground. Now, there has been footage that has been circulating on social media, and you can see that he's wearing a mask, which obviously was taken off him when he was arrested. So just because you see something splashed across the headlines about Israel in your mainstream media doesn't always mean that it is the full picture. And finally, students and the parents of hostages have filed a suit at a New York court today against Columbia University. Now, the suit has been filed because Columbia University has allowed a pro-Palestinian student organization to operate on its campus. But here are the facts. Former hostage Shlomi Ziv, he was one of those hostages that was rescued by Yamam and IDF forces last year. He says that Hamas had boasted to the captives that they had Hamas operatives on university campuses in the United States. And I know that there is a lot happening in the media in the United States with regards to Mahmoud Khalil and he being deported from the US for supporting terrorist organizations. Now, what is also very, very telling is that this particular pro-Palestinian student organization, 3 minutes before the attacks began on the 7th of October, restarted their dormant social media with the words, "We're back." How much did they know? My instinct tells me a whole lot. So those are your top stories. Let's take a look at your audience question, and it comes from Stephen, who says, why is Egypt involved in negotiations? Good question, Stephen. So we have both Qatar and Egypt who are involved in negotiations with Hamas and the US and Israel trying to broker a hostage deal and another ceasefire. So the reason is pretty simple. First of all, throughout the many flare-ups and conflagrations between Israel and Hamas over the years, Egypt has been a broker. They have been able to broker peace. And we can't forget that Egypt has a peace treaty with the state of Israel. That is still in effect. And Stephen was asking, but didn't Egypt supply weapons to Hamas? And it's not as straightforward as that. Egypt didn't supply weapons to Hamas, but they were pretty lax in that controlling of what went in and out the border. And many say that some Egyptian officials received a lot of kickbacks for turning a blind eye to what was or what managed to get through those border tunnels. So that's where we have huge question marks around this. But we also have the Qataris involved, and we know that Qatar is a major sponsor of anti-Semitic propaganda around the world. But I think when it comes to a wartime situation, what we need to do is ensure that whatever parties can help bring everybody to the negotiation table, that we do that. And as we often say, we negotiate with our enemies and not necessarily those who are our friends. But don't forget, Egypt still has a peace treaty with Israel. So those are our top stories. And if you have an audience question, please don't forget to pop it in the comment section below or on our various social media. You can find us at www.layoftheland.online. We are on Facebook at Lottel's site, on YouTube at the Israel Brief right here. Where else are we? We are on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, and on X at Lay of the Land 5. So guys, thank you all for joining me despite the cacophony all around me, as we say in Israel, a balagan. And I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.